Have you ever felt like the scales of family were unbalanced? Like some members always seemed to carry a heavier weight, while others glided through life with an unspoken expectation of support? Welcome to the story of Jay, a young man who learned early on that family first could sometimes mean everyone else first. From a childhood birthday overshadowed by demands, to adulthood defined by unspoken obligations, Jay's journey is a raw and honest look at the insidious nature of entitlement and the breaking point of a bond stretched too thin. Join us as we delve into today's story. The crinkle of the glossy red paper was the sound of pure, unadulterated joy in my 7-year-old world. Spider-Man. Not just any Spider-Man, but the one with the posable limbs and the web shooter that actually shot a little plastic web, which Mom would inevitably confiscate for fear of it getting lost. My fingers, still clumsy with excitement, fumbled with the tape, finally revealing the window box. There he was, my hero, frozen in mid-swing against a backdrop of a stylized New York City skyline. A sigh escaped my lips. This was it. The culmination of months of carefully worded requests, hopeful glances in toy store windows, and persuasive arguments laid out for Grandma during her weekly phone calls. Then, the floor vibrated. A small, blonde blur launched itself across the floral-patterned living room rug. All of 5 years old and radiating a chaotic energy that often left a trail of destruction in its wake, arrived with the force of a tiny, entitled hurricane. Her cherubic face contorted into a mask of possessive rage. No! Mine! The shriek was high-pitched and surprisingly powerful, capable of cutting through adult conversation and silencing the television. Her small, sticky hands, usually coated in a film of juice or Play-Doh, clamped onto the box with surprising strength. Before I could even register the injustice, before the thrill of ownership had a chance to settle in my chest, Mom's voice, that familiar blend of weary patience and automatic appeasement, filled the room. Jay, let your sister play with it first. Her hands, gentle when tending her garden but firm when mediating sibling squabbles, always in SS' favor, pried the coveted box from my grasp. But it's my birthday present. The words tumbled out, thick with disbelief and the first sting of betrayal. This wasn't a shared toy, this was mine, a tangible symbol of being another year older, another year seen. Dad's newspaper rustled, the sound a dismissive counterpoint to my rising distress. Don't be difficult, Jay. She's just excited. His eyes remained hidden behind the broadsheet, a familiar shield against the messy realities of family dynamics. His pronouncements always felt final, leaving no room for argument or appeal. I stood there, a 7-year-old statue of injustice, as S attacked the packaging with a ferocity that seemed disproportionate to her size. The cardboard ripped, the plastic groaned, and within what felt like mere seconds, a sickening snap echoed through the room. Spider-Man's leg, the one poised mid-air, dangled at an unnatural angle. Tears, hot and angry, welled in my eyes. The injustice of it all was a physical ache in my small chest. He's broken. I choked out, pointing at the mangled figure. The response was swift and predictable. Jay, don't be such a baby, Mom sighed, her attention already shifting to S, who was now wailing about the broken toy. You're overreacting. Go to your room and calm down. Banished. On my own birthday. The injustice felt monumental. Upstairs, in the quiet solitude of my room, the tears finally spilled over. It wasn't just about the toy, it was about the consistent, unspoken message. My feelings didn't matter as much. SS excitement, SS needs, always took precedence. Later that night, the thin walls of our small house carried the murmur of adult voices. I heard Mom's soothing tone drifting from SS' room. Don't worry, baby. We'll get you your own special toy tomorrow. Anything you want. The words hung in the air, heavy with a promise that had never been extended to me. The silence that followed was deafening. No one remembered it was my birthday. The defiled wrapping paper lay discarded in the trash, a symbol of a day that had been overshadowed, stolen. The broken Spider-Man, a painful reminder of a pattern that was just beginning to take shape. Fast forward to when I turned 18. The crisp, official stationery of State University felt like a lifeline in my trembling hands. The words full academic scholarship seemed to glow on the page, a beacon of hope in the often murky waters of our family's finances. 4 years of relentless dedication, of late-night study sessions fueled by cheap coffee and the quiet determination to forge my own path, had paid off. This wasn't just an acceptance letter, it was my escape route, the only viable path to a future I had dared to dream of. I walked into the kitchen, the letter clutched tightly in my hand. Mom was perched on a stool by the counter, her brow furrowed in concentration as she meticulously applied eyeliner to S.'s already heavily made-up eyelids. S, now 16 and blossoming into a self-aware beauty, gazed intently at her reflection in a handheld mirror. "That's nice, honey," Mom said absently, her focus unwavering. "Did you see Est got cast as the lead in the school play? They're doing Grease. She's going to be such a fantastic Sandy." Her voice was filled with a genuine pride that rarely seemed to be directed my way. Dad, ever the stoic observer, sat at the kitchen table, flipping through the local newspaper. He offered a perfunctory pat on my back without looking up. "Good job, son. Smart kid. Just remember, this means you can help your sister when she applies next year. College is expensive." The casual assumption hung in the air, unspoken yet palpable. My achievement, my hard-won opportunity, was immediately framed as a future resource for S. There was no celebration, no genuine acknowledgement of my accomplishment for its own sake. The summer that followed was a stark illustration of the ingrained disparity. While I spent my days precariously balanced on ladders, the scorching sun beating down on my back as I painted the peeling facades of suburban houses, S lounged by the community pool, her laughter echoing through the air. The money I earned was meticulously saved for textbooks, for the inevitable expenses that a full scholarship wouldn't cover. One sweltering afternoon, wiping sweat from my brow, I asked Mom why S wasn't looking for a summer job. "Oh, honey," she chuckled, as if the very idea was absurd. "S has such delicate skin. That summer sun would ruin her complexion. Besides, she needs to rest up for rehearsals. Being a lead is hard work, you know." The logic, or lack thereof, stung. My own skin, perpetually tanned and often splattered with paint, apparently wasn't delicate. My own hard work, the physical labor that left my muscles aching, was simply expected. As college application season approached for S, the pressure mounted. Mom frequently reminded me of my responsibility to guide her through the process, to proofread her essays, which were largely about the challenges of being popular, and to share any insights I had gained. My own transition to university, the daunting task of navigating a new environment and rigorous academics, felt like a solitary endeavor. When SS acceptance letters, to less prestigious, and significantly more expensive, private colleges, started arriving, the focus shifted entirely. Suddenly, my scholarship wasn't a triumph but a convenient offset. "Well, at least we only have to worry about one tuition bill," Dad commented, a hint of forced optimism in his voice. The unspoken expectation was clear: my financial aid would somehow alleviate the burden of SS choices. There was no discussion about her exploring more affordable options, no encouragement to seek scholarships herself. Her comfort and desires were paramount. "Skip to when I can afford to rent an apartment to myself." The cramped confines of my studio apartment, a testament to my hard-won independence, usually smelled of the slightly acrid fumes of cheap ramen noodles, occasionally punctuated by the fresher scent of the paint I used in my side hustle refinishing furniture. At 22, I was the anomaly among my college friends, the one who wasn't still partially or fully supported by their parents. I paid my own rent, managed my own bills, and navigated the complexities of adulthood without a safety net. It was challenging, but it was mine. The insistent buzz of my phone dragged me away from a particularly intricate sanding project. A new voicemail notification. "Mom." My stomach clenched preemptively. Her calls were rarely casual, they usually heralded some sort of crisis, invariably involving S. I pressed play, the familiar sound of Mom's slightly breathless voice filling the small space. "Jay, it's Mom." "Oh, honey, I have such bad news. S got evicted. Again. That awful landlord is being completely unreasonable and won't return her security deposit even though the fire wasn't even her fault. Apparently, some faulty wiring in the building. Anyway, she has nowhere to go. Could she possibly stay with you for a few weeks? Just until she finds a new place. My gaze drifted to the faint, circular mark on my worn couch, a souvenir from SS' last few weeks' visit, which had stretched into a 3-month occupation. The cigarette burn, carelessly inflicted and never acknowledged, was a tangible reminder of the disruption and the unspoken expectation that my space, my life, was always available for her convenience. My finger hovered over the callback button, a knot of resentment tightening in my chest. Before I could succumb to the familiar guilt trip, another notification chimed, a Venmo request. From Dad. The amount, $500. The description, SS Emergency Storage Unit. The audacity was breathtaking. Not a phone call explaining the situation, not a request, but a demand disguised as a convenience. My already stretched budget, carefully managed to cover rent, utilities, and the occasional semblance of a healthy meal, was now expected to absorb another of SS' crises. The few weeks always morphed into months. My small apartment became a chaotic extension of SS life, filled with her discarded clothes, half-eaten takeout containers, and the constant drama of her latest romantic entanglements. My carefully curated sense of order dissolved, replaced by a simmering frustration. My attempts to establish boundaries were met with wounded sighs and accusations of being unsupportive. This time, the prospect felt particularly daunting. I was finally starting to feel settled, to create a sanctuary in my small space. The thought of it being disrupted again, of sacrificing my peace and my finances, filled me with a weary dread. Skip to when I can afford to rent an apartment to myself. The cramped confines of my studio apartment, a testament to my hard-won independence, usually smelled of the slightly acrid fumes of cheap ramen noodles, occasionally punctuated by the fresher scent of the paint I used in my side hustle refinishing furniture. At 22, I was the anomaly among my college friends, the one who wasn't still partially or fully supported by their parents. I paid my own rent, managed my own bills, and navigated the complexities of adulthood without a safety net. It was challenging, but it was mine. The insistent buzz of my phone dragged me away from a particularly intricate sanding project. A new voicemail notification. Mom. My stomach clenched preemptively. Her calls were rarely casual, they usually heralded some sort of crisis, invariably involving S. I pressed play, the familiar sound of Mom's slightly breathless voice filling the small space. Jay, it's Mom. Oh, honey, I have such bad news. S. got evicted. Again. That awful landlord is being completely unreasonable and won't return her security deposit even though the fire wasn't even her fault. Apparently, some faulty wiring in the building. Anyway, she has nowhere to go. Could she possibly stay with you for a few weeks? Just until she finds a new place. My gaze drifted to the faint, circular mark on my worn couch, a souvenir from SS' last few weeks' visit, which had stretched into a 3-month occupation. The cigarette burn, carelessly inflicted and never acknowledged, was a tangible reminder of the disruption and the unspoken expectation that my space, my life, was always available for her convenience. My finger hovered over the callback button, a knot of resentment tightening in my chest. Before I could succumb to the familiar guilt trip, another notification chimed, a Venmo request. From Dad. The amount, $500. The description, SS Emergency Storage Unit. The audacity was breathtaking. Not a phone call explaining the situation, not a request, but a demand disguised as a. Fast forward to the present day. The cool metal of the keys felt substantial, almost weighty, in my palm. They represented 5 years of relentless dedication, of sacrificing personal time for professional advancement. 60-hour workweeks had become the norm, punctuated by the glow of my computer screen and the lukewarm taste of countless takeout meals eaten hastily at my desk. Vacations were a distant concept, replaced by the relentless pursuit of financial security, a buffer against the unexpected demands that always seemed to materialize. This 2-bedroom condo, with its sun-drenched living room and the promise of a quiet life, was the physical manifestation of that sacrifice. It was mine. Finally, something truly mine. As I stood in the empty living room, the silence amplifying the sense of accomplishment, my phone buzzed. The familiar chime of the family group text. A wave of apprehension washed over me. Mom's message appeared first, so proud of you, honey. This is wonderful news. Now S can finally move out of that awful apartment complex. It was such a stressful environment for her and the kids. Dad's followed quickly. Good job, son. Make sure you get her a key made. She'll probably need to start moving things in soon. Then, S's characteristic burst of enthusiasm. OMG, yes. This is amazing. The kids will love having a pool. When can we move in? We should start planning the bedrooms. I stared at the messages, the sense of triumph dissolving into a cold dread. They hadn't asked. Not a single question about my plans, my feelings, my life. It was an assumption, a foregone conclusion, that my hard-earned sanctuary was simply the next available resource to be absorbed into SS orbit. The casual entitlement was a familiar sting, but this time, it felt different. This wasn't a temporary inconvenience, this was my home. The audacity of S talking about we moving in, about planning my bedrooms, was staggering. The complete disregard for my ownership, for the years of effort that had gone into acquiring this space, was a punch to the gut. SS assault on my boundaries was a multi-pronged attack, each wave designed to chip away at my resolve and exploit my vulnerabilities. Wave 1, the sob story. The initial contact was a tearful phone call, her voice thick with manufactured distress. Jay, you won't believe what's happening. The kids, they're being bullied terribly at their school. It's a really rough district, you know? All the other parents are talking about moving. It's just unbearable for them. The implication was clear: my new condo, presumably located in a better school district, though she hadn't bothered to ask, was the obvious solution to her children's woes. Wave 2, the guilt trip. This phase involved carefully deployed reminders of past, often exaggerated or misconstrued, acts of support. Remember that time your girlfriend dumped you sophomore year? I let you sleep on my couch for 2 whole nights. You were such a mess. Family has to be there for each other, Jay. The 2 nights on her lumpy futon, during which she complained incessantly about my moping, were now presented as a significant sacrifice, a debt I was obligated to repay. Wave 3, the public shaming. S took to social media with vague, emotionally charged posts. So disappointed in some people. Family is supposed to be everything. Guess some just forget where they come from. #ungrateful #family first, supposedly. These cryptic messages were clearly aimed at me, designed to elicit sympathy from mutual acquaintances and pressure me into yielding to her demands. Mom's daily calls were a relentless barrage of emotional manipulation, each conversation a new angle in the campaign to wear me down. You know S isn't as strong as you are, Jay. She's always been more sensitive. Code 4, S gets what she wants. We didn't raise you to be selfish. Family helps family. Ignoring the decades of one-sided help. Your father's blood pressure has been up lately. This whole situation is really stressing him out. Implying my refusal was impacting his health. The pressure was immense. The constant guilt-tripping, the subtle, and not so subtle, accusations of selfishness, and the manipulation through our parents were a familiar tactic, but the stakes felt higher this time. This wasn't about a borrowed sweater or a few weeks on my couch, this was about my home, my sanctuary. The family meeting took place at my parents' house, the familiar setting now charged with a palpable tension. The air crackled with unspoken accusations and years of simmering resentment. I sat opposite them, the folder containing the evidence of their exploitation resting heavily on the coffee table. You went behind my back, I began, my voice shaking slightly but firm, to try to lease out my home. My property. Without even a conversation, without a shred of respect for my ownership. Mom's eyes immediately welled up, a familiar tactic designed to deflect blame. We were just trying to help you, Jay. It's such a big place for you alone. S needs a stable environment for the children. We thought. Her voice trailed off, thick with unshed tears. Help me, I scoffed, the bitterness rising in my throat. By unilaterally deciding what to do with my largest investment by treating my home like a family-owned timeshare that S gets priority on. Dad slammed his fist on the polished wooden table, the sound sharp and jarring. After everything we've done for you. We supported you through college. Ignoring the full scholarship I had earned. We always made sure you had what you needed. While consistently prioritizing SS wants. Supported me, I echoed, my gaze sweeping between their faces. Or enabled S, at my expense I slid the folder across the table. Take a look at this. Inside were meticulously organized printouts every small loan they had forgotten to repay me over the years, adding up to a significant sum. There were photos of SS' actual apartment complex, far from the hovel she had described, complete with a well-maintained pool and manicured lawns. And on top, the crisp, official letterhead of my attorney, containing a formal cease and desist order addressed to S, regarding the attempted lease agreement. S, who had been relatively quiet until this point, her face a mask of wounded innocence, finally, the decision to sell the condo was swift and decisive. The thought of living in a space that had become a battleground, a symbol of familial betrayal, was unbearable. The process was bittersweet, a sense of liberation mingled with the lingering ache of disappointment. Moving across the country felt like cutting a physical tie. The miles stretched between me and the constant demands, the unspoken expectations. Changing my phone number was the final severing, a necessary act of self-preservation. The news from the old world trickled in through Sarah, a mutual friend who occasionally checked in. The picture she painted was both predictable and unsettling. S, predictably, had landed on her feet, or rather, in my parents' retirement condo. They had decided that the change of scenery would be good for her and the kids, conveniently overlooking their own long-term plans. Dad, it turned out, had been forced to postpone his full retirement and return to a consulting role to cover SS' latest business venture, a short-lived online boutique selling overpriced, mass-produced clothing. The venture, unsurprisingly, had ended in financial disaster, leaving my parents to pick up the pieces. Mom, Sarah reported with a weary sigh, had become a fixture at her book club and neighborhood gatherings, lamenting to anyone who would listen about how families used to stick together and how some children just forget their roots. The irony, of course, was completely lost on her. Sometimes, in the quiet of my new life, thousands of miles away from the familiar dysfunction, I would wonder if they ever truly grasped the role they had played in creating the monster they now occasionally complained about. Did they ever reflect on the years of enabling behavior, the constant prioritization of SS needs over mine, the unspoken message that my worth was tied to my ability to provide for her? Then, I would remember Sarah's latest update. My parents were helping S pack for a much-needed vacation, all expenses paid, of course. And the realization would settle in, cold and unwavering, they were still carrying her bags. And that's all for today's story. Thank you for tuning in and I hope you're all enjoyed. Leave a like if you enjoyed the story and leave a comment to let us know what to improve in the future. Hope to see you guys on our next video.